When my wife passed away, her wealthy boss called me and said, "I found something. Come to my office right now." Then he said, "Don't tell your son or your daughter-in-law. You could be in danger." When I got there and saw who was standing at the door, I froze. Stick around because this story goes somewhere you won't expect. My name is Harold Doyle. I'm 61. I spent 33 years fixing trucks off Brook Park Road in Cleveland, and I'd been married to Diane since I was 27. This is her story as much as mine, maybe more. The funeral was a Tuesday in October, thin gray rain hanging in the air instead of falling. I stood in a suit I hadn't worn since our son's wedding, looking at a casket holding the only woman I ever loved, waiting for it to feel real. It didn't. Diane had died 9 days earlier. Cardiac event sudden, the paramedics said. She was 58, had blood pressure history. I believed them because I had no reason not to. She'd worked 24 years as executive assistant to Richard Holloway, who owned one of the biggest commercial real estate firms in the city. She used to say he trusted her with things he wouldn't tell his own family. I understand now exactly how true that was. About 40 people came. My son Kyle sat in the front row beside his wife, Vanessa, and neither of them cried once. Vanessa kept checking her phone under the program. Kyle kept leaning in to whisper to her, quick and low, like they were coordinating something instead of grieving. At 11:52, in the middle of the pastor's closing words, my phone buzzed. Richard Holloway. I stepped into the hallway and answered, and his voice was tight in a way I'd never heard from that man. "Harold, I found something. You need to come to my office right now." Richard was not a man who panicked. Calm, polished, the kind of man who owned 3 downtown buildings and still remembered the janitor's kids' names. Hearing him shake told me something was very wrong. "What did you find?" "Not on the phone, come to my office. And Harold, don't tell your son, don't tell your daughter-in-law, not yet. You could be in danger. Before I go further, you need to understand my family. Diane and I built a good life on a mechanic's wage and her assistant's salary. Paid off our house on Maple Heights Boulevard, kept a decent retirement account, helped our son Kyle whenever he needed it, which lately had become often. Kyle was 32, married to Vanessa 6 years, and the two of them had been in and out of money trouble since he lost his sales job in 2019. Over the past year, they'd started coming around more. Sunday dinners turned into Wednesday visits turned into Vanessa offering out of nowhere to help Diane organize her pills and paperwork. Since Mom's getting older. I hadn't thought much of it. Looking back, that's exactly the problem. In the weeks before she died, Diane changed. Tired more easily, foggy mornings, her heart skipping. Her doctor adjusted her blood pressure medication twice. Vanessa started coming by Tuesdays and Fridays to sort Mom's pills into the weekly organizer. One Friday, I came home early and found Vanessa alone in our kitchen with the organizer open, and Diane asleep on the couch mid-afternoon, something she never did. Vanessa smiled, said Diane was tired from her walk and left 10 minutes later. I didn't think anything of it. My wife trusted her daughter-in-law. 3 days before she died, Diane asked if I remembered signing papers at the kitchen table in July, something about updating our power of attorney. I told her I didn't remember any such thing. She said Kyle had mentioned bringing something by and she must have forgotten. We let it go. The morning she died, I was out getting gas. Diane called Kyle first because I wasn't answering. By the time I got home, paramedics were loading her into the ambulance. She was gone before we reached the hospital. Cardiac arrest. Nobody asked a single question beyond that, and in my grief, neither did I. Standing in that hallway with Richard's voice shaking in my ear, all of it came rushing back, the pill organizer, the paperwork I never signed. The way Kyle and Vanessa had been circling my wife for months like they were waiting on something. "I can't explain over the phone," Richard said. "Diane left something with me, a letter, a drive. She told me to open it only if something happened to her. I opened it this morning. What's on it? Come see for yourself, don't stop at home, and whatever you do, don't mention this call to Kyle or Vanessa." My hands were shaking when I hung up. I went back in, sat through the last 20 minutes hearing none of it, and afterward told Kyle I had insurance paperwork to sort out and would meet everyone at the house later. He barely looked up from his phone. "Sure, Dad." Vanessa was already walking toward the parking lot, heels clicking on wet pavement, talking low into her phone to someone I couldn't see. I drove downtown with my wife's casket still fresh in the ground behind me. No idea the worst part of that day hadn't happened yet. Holloway Properties took the top 3 floors of a glass building on Euclid Avenue. I parked at 12:40, still in my funeral suit, and headed for the elevators, and that's when a car came screeching into the loading zone. Kyle's black Nissan. I froze. My son was supposed to be at the burial site right now. Instead, he was downtown at his mother's employer's building, less than 30 minutes after telling me he'd meet me at the house. I stepped behind a pillar and watched him half-jog inside, jacket straightening, face pale and tight. He wasn't grieving. He looked like a man running out of time. He went straight to the front desk, not the elevators, leaning in, talking fast and low. The receptionist shook her head, then picked up the phone to call upstairs. I used the moment to slip past toward the elevators, my suit blending in just enough, and rode up to the 14th floor with my heart hammering. Richard was waiting when the doors opened, tie loosened, pacing. "Did you see him downstairs?" "That's my son." "Richard, what is going on?" "I called your house by mistake this morning before I reached your cell." Vanessa picked up. "I only said I needed to speak with you about paperwork." Diane left. "Apparently that was enough to send your son racing down here to beat you to it." My stomach dropped. Richard led me to his office and, without turning around, said the words that changed everything. "Your wife knew something was happening to her, Harold, and she made sure I'd be the one to tell you." "Not them." He closed the door, locked it, and pulled a manila envelope from behind a framed photo. Diane's handwriting across the front, "For Harold only if anything happens to me." She brought this 3 weeks ago, said she didn't trust bringing it home. Said if anything happened to her, I was to give it to you in person and warn you about who you told. Inside was a folded letter and a flash drive taped to the back. Diane had noticed money disappearing from our retirement account, small amounts, then larger ones over 4 months. She'd asked Kyle about paperwork she didn't remember signing. He brushed it off, but something in his face made her uneasy enough to start quietly checking bank statements herself. She'd found a power of attorney filed with our bank, dated July, with signatures that weren't ours. And she'd started feeling strange in the mornings. Around the same time, Vanessa started organizing her pills. "There's more on the drive," Richard said quietly. "Sit down for this part." The first folder held screenshots of 4 transfers between June and September, over $61,000, authorized with that forged power of attorney. Moved into an account under Kyle and Vanessa's names. The second held photos of pharmacy receipts next to prescription bottles. Diane's handwriting comparing dosages, extra pills, small and white, that didn't match her real prescriptions. The third folder put ice straight through my chest. A screenshot from our shared family tablet, a text conversation between Vanessa and someone saved only as Danny, 3 weeks before Diane died. "Vanessa, she's getting suspicious about the account. We need to hurry this along before she says something to Harold. Danny, just keep upping the dose slow." Nobody questions a heart thing at her age. I sat there staring at the screen, something breaking loose in my chest I didn't have words for. Richard said Diane had come to him because she was afraid that if something happened to her, whoever was responsible would control the story before I ever saw the truth. "She protected you from beyond the grave," he said. "Now we protect you for real." He explained why he'd warned me to keep Kyle and Vanessa away if Diane's suspicions were right, and the evidence said they very likely were. This wasn't just theft. With a forged power of attorney already on file, I could be next. "We need proof strong enough for police," Richard said, "before they know we're looking." That afternoon he called Frank Delgado, a retired detective now doing private work. Frank went through the drive twice, then said what none of us wanted to hear. "This is enough to open an investigation, not enough yet to guarantee a conviction. We need the pharmacy records pulled officially, a forensic look at that signature, and if you're willing, a camera in your house. People like this talk when they think nobody's listening." I said yes without hesitating. Frank installed 2 hidden cameras 2 nights later, while Kyle and Vanessa believed I was grieving at my brothers. I moved back home the following Monday. It took 11 days, 11 days of sitting across the dinner table from my son and his wife, nodding along while Vanessa gently asked when I might be ready to simplify things and sell the house. Every night I went to bed sick. Every morning I did it again, because Frank said the moment they felt safe was the moment they'd stop being careful. On the 12th day, after I went upstairs early claiming I was tired, the kitchen camera caught them alone at the table. "The account's fully transferred," Vanessa said. "Once he signs off on selling the house, we're done. We don't even need the POA anymore." "Just don't get sloppy like you did with Mom," Kyle said. "That pharmacist almost caught the refill pattern," Vanessa laughed. "Nobody double-checks an old woman's heart medication, Kyle." "Nobody ever does." Frank had that footage in an evidence file within the hour, combined with pharmacy records showing an unexplained early refill pattern on a medication that dangerously affects heart rhythm at high doses. And a forensic handwriting analysis confirming the power of attorney was forged. Frank called it airtight. We decided to spring it at the reading of Diane's will at our lawyer Patricia Wynn's office the following Thursday. Kyle and Vanessa had no idea Frank would be sitting in the next room, or that two detectives waited outside in an unmarked car. I spent that week exactly as I had the 11 before, tired, quiet, cooperative. Vanessa even hugged me the morning of the meeting and told me she was proud of how strong I was being. I let her arms wrap around me, thinking about that text on Richard's laptop, feeling nothing but cold, steady patience. We sat down at 10 that morning. Kyle in a gray suit, Vanessa in black, both relaxed, expecting a formality before collecting what they believed was already theirs. Patricia went through the opening, then asked if I had anything to add. "Actually, yes," I watched Kyle's face flicker. "Before we go further, I think it's time everyone in this room saw what your mother left behind." I nodded toward the door. Richard walked in with his laptop, followed by Frank Delgado, whose face Kyle clearly recognized from somewhere. The color drained out of my son immediately. "What is this?" Vanessa's voice went sharp. "Harold, what's going on?" "Diane," I said, "that's what's going on." Richard set the laptop down and played the kitchen footage without a word. Vanessa's own voice filled the room, the account, not needing the POA anymore, then Kyle's, warning her not to get sloppy like she had with Mom. The room went dead silent except for that recording, every word landing like a hammer. Vanessa shot up, her chair scraping hard. That's taken out of context. Sit down," Frank said calmly, showing his credentials. "There are two detectives outside this office. Everything you say can be used against you. Financial exploitation of an elder, forgery, and pending toxicology results from an exhumation request already filed with the coroner regarding Diane Doyle's cause of death." Kyle hadn't said a word. He stared at the table, and I watched something break in my son's face. Not innocence, that was long gone, but the look of a man realizing there was nowhere left to run. "Dad," he said, voice cracking, "I never wanted her to actually die, I swear. It was just supposed to slow her down. Keep her confused enough she wouldn't fight the paperwork." For a second the room tilted. All I could see was Diane in that hospital bed I never reached in time. But I didn't yell. I didn't need to. "Your mother sat in that kitchen every Sunday for 30 years making sure you had a full plate before she filled her own," I said quietly. "And you sat across from her counting down how long until you got the house." The detectives came in 2 minutes later. Vanessa cried the whole way out. Kyle didn't say another word. It's been almost 8 months. Kyle pled guilty to financial exploitation of an elder and forgery, 4 years at Grafton Correctional. Vanessa's case went further. The exhumation confirmed dangerously elevated levels of heart medication in Diane's system, far beyond anything prescribed. She was convicted of involuntary manslaughter alongside the financial charges, 11 years. Danny turned out to be Vanessa's cousin, a pharmacy technician quietly diverting medication, now facing his own charges. I still live in the house on Maple Heights Boulevard. Some mornings the quiet used to hurt. Now it mostly just feels honest. I got the retirement money back, every dollar through the court, though the money was never really the point. Richard Holloway and I have become genuinely close friends since all of this. He tells me Diane used to talk about me at the office more than I ever knew, always proud, always certain I'd do right by her if it ever came to that. I set up a small scholarship in Diane's name through the cardiac care unit at MetroHealth, for families who can't afford the follow-up care that might have caught what was happening to her sooner. It's not much yet. It's growing. I think about that hallway outside the funeral home a lot, Richard's voice shaking on the phone, telling me to come see something before it was too late to matter. My wife protected me one last time from beyond the grave, and I intend to spend whatever years I have left making sure that protection meant something.